Welcome everyone. This is Andres Restart, and I am joined by my good friend Brandon. And tonight, it's gonna basically be kind of just like a chill Q&A. I don't even know what's gonna happen tonight. We're just talking about what Nintendo may have cooking. That we could take that term literally. What are they cooking? Are they cooking bologna? Or are they cooking pasta? Are they baking some pizza or cake? Or are they frying or grilling some sausages? I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that. Or maybe we'll talk about how what Monolith Soft is working on, or are they preparing a Nintendo Direct? Are they truly requesting footage from their different partners, putting together perhaps a Switch 2 presentation? There is all these things they may or may not be cooking up, which we'll be discussing today. But before I do that, I was telling Brandon about a video series that I want to do. The first episode may come out tomorrow. And so I don't want to say it, because if I say it, the idea is out there, right?
Right.
Brandon, should I give them a hint about it? Like maybe like a hint about it?
Yeah. Just give him a hint.
Okay. And on a scale of 1 to 5, how interesting did you find the series that I kind of described to you?
I think it all depends on the execution, right?
Assume I execute it well.
Yeah, I'd say like an 8 or a 9. It seemed pretty interesting.
I said out of 5, so.
Oh, you said out of 5.
Good.
Oh,
that's pretty good.
10.
Oh man.
Oh, out of 5 or 4.
Okay. All right. All right. Cool. So let's do a little hint. I'm trying to figure out how I should do this. Should I do a poll? Actually, I'll do 2 hints. Here's the first hint. Is there a psychological term for simp? How is this related to Nintendo? I don't know how to spell psychological.
It's like PHYS.
I know how to spell psychological. That's a joke. I'm good. Also,
I don't know how to spell it. No, right this second.
Not
without actually trying to type it.
Is there a psychological term for simp? Yeah, this is they probably have no idea what I'm.
Maybe the big brain amongst them will figure it out.
Yeah, I don't.
No, it'd be very, very hard to do so from that.
Gerald Tolkien in the chat. There is no psychological term for simp. Source: I am a licensed therapist.
Ah.
Okay. The question's almost rhetorical, but it's I actually don't know. So if you guys have a term, it'd be interesting. Yeah, I got something cooking. That'll be interesting. Here's a third hint that you'll have to think about later on to realize that it is a hint. I haven't told you the second hint yet. I'm telling you the third hint.
Yeah, I was about to say, where's the second hint?
The second hint hasn't come yet, which is interesting. So here's the third hint being that this question applies to episode 3 or 4. So.
Right. That makes sense. With the context, I do
what I told you.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Hint 3 will come soon. I'm gonna give it a few minutes while we kind of let people flow in. But I'm really excited for the series that I may start tomorrow. And when I give you the third hint, it may be a little bit more clear, but it still won't be totally clear.
Oh, you mean the second hint?
You're right. the second hint that'll be telling third. Correct. But how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. The weather was nice. I was just, chilling outside, reading, enjoying not having to go to work. Although, I will soon be doing that. But I'm enjoying the few days, while I wait.
Okay. Yeah, it's good. Relaxation is key. I actually took it a little bit easy myself the last couple days. So lately, right, I've been not doing anything YouTube related Saturdays. Like I just nothing. I don't. I try. I might look at my like stats a couple times, but even that I try and just like forget about it for a little bit. I think that's been better for me. Um, I may
It's always good to not focus on the stats too much.
I may go back to having a video come out literally every day, but it would mean that I made the video beforehand. So
Right.
we'll kind of see on that because sometimes I don't know. It depends. So we'll see on that. But I also, actually, I normally take just one day, where I don't really do anything. I did two this time.
Nice.
I didn't do anything yesterday. You guys may have noticed. I actually had a concept in mind for a video I wanted to do yesterday, but I just to be frank, it was one of those things where I don't think by the time I was getting around to like, all right, let's maybe do this. I didn't feel like I had enough time in the day, and I didn't want to like rush it. But also the idea wasn't fully materialized, so
Right.
I'm not sure. Yesterday was April Fool's, right? So
Yeah.
I'll literally tell you what it is because I'm not sure I'm gonna make I don't think the video is gonna happen. By the way, these ideas that I have for a video that don't materialize all the time. It's kind of like video game
Nice.
development. There are all sorts of concepts and ideas that people are like, "Oh, let's do this," and they never materialize. So I had a video concept that I wanted I kind of wanted to do, and then I didn't do it. So you know what's funny? Maybe if I had made the video, it would have gone like 1,000,000 views because it would have been
It'd been
I don't
nice.
know. I honestly don't
Who
know how it
knows?
would have done. The title of the video, because I have a whiteboard here where I write down my ideas. The title of the video would have been "This video is about nothing." That would have been the title of the
right.
video. It would have come out yesterday for April Fools. I probably would have put like a really basic like thumbnail too, like just a black thumbnail with white text, nothing. But I didn't want to actually go. I didn't want to like lazy out the video though. I wanted to make it interesting, right? But the video is going to be about nothing. So how do you make a video about nothing interesting?
Right.
And
It's
it
pretty
was going,
tough.
and so maybe I'll eventually get around to doing this, right? Maybe I'll make that like a bonus Saturday video or something.
Oh, be nice.
We'll see, right? But I kind of wanted to do it, and I was gonna go into like the concept of nothing and how important nothing is. I was gonna dive, and I was gonna take it in several different directions, right? I was gonna take it in the direction of, okay, well, right now there's not a lot of game news, so what do we talk about? Nothing, right? Or I was gonna talk about how like defining nothing, like what is nothing, and how I would define nothing is the absence of something.
Right.
But see, here's the interesting thing about nothing, right? The nothing helps you appreciate the something more. There's a contrast. It's like
True.
a yin
True.
and yang, a light and a dark, right? Good and bad. You can't really tell what something is until you have nothing. And so it's kind of like you go back to like right now where we're going through this news drought, right? When we get to something, it's going to feel all the more satisfying. It's going to be all the
True.
more cool. So that was going to be kind of like the video concept. It was going to go beyond just the scope of gaming. And so maybe I'll go back and do that, right? But just it's an idea that I ultimately didn't think I was in the brainstorming stage, and I ultimately decided to just, not do
Right.
it. Yeah. Anyway, rambling aside, let's check in with the chat. Let's see how everyone's doing.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So, scrolling through. Skysword Alyssa, hello. Anthony Smith, hello there. Connor, hello. Connor adds me, hey man, how's it going? I'm doing relatively well. Well, I know that Hal is working on the next 3D Kirby game. which could be a sequel to Forgotten Land. But is there any more Kirby stuff they can announce? Yeah, I mean, there's something I've been kind of like pushing for. I mean, we don't know what they're doing, but the Kirby stuff happens really frequently. They can
Oh yeah.
they can spit out a spin-off or a remaster like randomly, like whenever they want, really. It wouldn't shock me if that happens this year. But what I kind of am pulling for is a remaster of Kirby's Air Ride.
Oh,
It would be
I've
so
heard
good.
I've heard good things about Kirby's Air Ride. I've never played it.
I think it would be such a good idea. Yeah, it's like a cult classic, right? It would be fun. It would be really fun if we could get something like that. But you know, I'm basing that purely off of, hey, I think this would be cool. They should do it. Like that. That is my logic behind it. There's no,
Right.
it's not a long list of evidence, but at the same time, maybe that's all the evidence you need. It would be fun
True.
and cool. Therefore, they should do it because people would want it and they would buy it. I think that's really all.
Good enough logic for me.
It is, because like what's the point of releasing games? For people to buy them because they think they're going to enjoy them. So
True.
if people would want a Kirby's Air Ride remaster on Switch, then it does make sense. Of course, the question is, will they decide to do that, or will they decide to focus their efforts on something else that may make more sense? And that's always kind of like, the debate.
When was the last Kirby game that came out?
Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe early last year.
Okay, so it has been a while.
Unless did Kirby's Dream Buffet? I think Kirby's Dream Buffet came out the year prior. Dream Buffet.
I do not remember.
Me neither. It's all blur.
I honestly don't even recall like that game existing.
Kirby's Dream Buffet it's a spin-off title. It's on eShop only. Came out August 17th, 2022.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's what happened. All right.
So yeah, we are kind of due a Kirby game of some type this year.
Mm-hmm. I think it does make sense. Yeah, because it's been over a year already. It's been a lot for Kirby. That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Do I expect a new 3D Kirby to come out this year? No. Maybe next year. It could happen. But no, probably on Switch 2.
Yeah. Santox Games has just finished their errands and homework, and they're ready just in time. I'm glad you're here, buddy. Shout outs to Yellow Kazoo in the chat. What's up? How you doing? Daryl Toki asks me, I'm getting the impression that Nintendo has straight up checked out major last day of school vibes. Yeah, I remember when I was in school and I was going through senioritis. I enjoyed that experience of senioritis since kindergarten.
You saying you just never cared about school?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I never had to care about school until I got into college, and then things started to get actually difficult.
I got solid grades. I wasn't like
same.
Student, but I went to class.
ABs.
Listen. Yeah, I did, but in terms of like studying and like homework, I did the bare minimum.
Yeah.
As
long as I didn't get a C in class, then I was fine.
I think when I actually started dealing with senioritis in my senior year of high school, that was bad. And then college, the senioritis kind of got stronger.
Yeah.
I made it work. Eventually. Anyway, yeah. Sky Stars Alyssa saying everything looks and sounds great. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that. Thank you, Cloud9, for as well. Appreciate that. Thank you. Glad it doesn't sound terrible. Hello there, Sega Channel. Hello there, Kuro Kamina. Star Fox, please. Yes, I'm with you there. I would love to see a Star Fox.
Something with
wonderful.
like an actual like budget and like solid new goal behind it.
Yeah. So AB James adds me and says, I really hope Mercury Steam is working on Metroid 6 for Switch 2. I think they probably kind of have to be. So the most successful
Very
game
likely.
in Spanish history is Metroid Dread. Um,
Ah,
yeah.
it's pretty
So
cool.
yeah, Metroid like out of Spain, right? A game being developed out of Spain. And so you would think they would follow that up. Metroid Dread is a very successful game. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't Nintendo continue? Why wouldn't Mercury want to continue? Now, maybe they think, oh, we can do something else, and they can do something else, but they can do something else, and they can still do Metroid Dread, or the sequel to Metroid Dread. So I 100% think that Metroid 6 is going to happen. And I absolutely believe that they were working on it for Switch too.
Man.
There's
Oh,
like
it's
no
just
doubt in my
funny.
mind that like it doesn't. How do you not, right? Like it. So what's interesting, right, is that you look back at prior Metroid games. Most of them, you could argue, oh, it didn't sell that well. Maybe we shouldn't push it. But Metroid Dread is the best-selling Metroid game ever. If
Yeah.
there's a Metroid game you're going to follow up, it's going to be this one. But
Yeah,
you know what?
most metrics it sold very, very well.
Yeah, and let's go further back. Metroid Prime was the prior best-selling Metroid. What they do? They made Metroid Prime 2. They made Metroid Prime 3. They made Metroid Prime Trilogy. Like they
Yeah.
kept the Metroid Prime brand going. Like Metroid Prime is still a thing now. Of course, it's been dormant, but it's making a comeback. But then Super Metroid, they still made they made Metroid Fusion after Super Metroid. Like they didn't just not make anything. It took a while though, because Super Metroid came out, I want to say 94. Or
I do not
I
know.
gotta double check that. Super Metroid. Yep, March 19, 1994. So it did take them a while to follow up with another Metroid game, but part of that was them trying to figure out how do they adapt Metroid into 3D, and so what they did is not for for the 90s until they figured it out with GameCube and then obviously the 2D games on Game Boy Advance.
Right.
Yeah, but my point is simply that I think that I would be just totally completely shocked and disappointed that if they weren't working on Metroid 6. I mean, Kensuke Tanabe, not Kensuke Tanabe, that's the Prime producer. Yoshio Sakamoto, which is the actual creator of Metroid, he's already said he has plans for future games beyond Dread. Like they're going to continue this. So I think it's happening. Now, the question is when, and then maybe patient with this one, but I think it is in the works.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. We're on the same page. Jaro Toki, am I cooking? I'm not sure. Not right now, but maybe soon. Metaphorically, I could be cooking, yeah. Physically, I'm not cooking right now. And I don't like to cook. I can cook.
I enjoy cooking.
Yeah.
But I always feel like I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Even though I have plenty of time, it's just my brain does not work well.
How often do you cook, Brandon? Like cook? Not putting Pop-Tarts in the toaster, not putting pizza in the microwave. Like how often do you cook where you get ingredients for a recipe and put it together?
When I have more money, typically I cook like several times a week. Almost every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just eat leftovers, so I don't cook that day.
Sure.
But sometimes I might cook, breakfast and not cook dinner, or cook dinner, not cook breakfast, something like that. But no, usually several times a week, sometimes every day. I cook pretty often.
So, I cook rarely because I don't like cooking. When I was in college and I was living in an apartment with my roommates, they didn't know how to cook, and so I cooked like every day. And then I got a job at a restaurant, and then I cooked there. And by the end of my college years, I was so sick and tired of cooking. I was like, I'm never doing this again. So cooking's not my thing, and never is a strong exaggeration. I do cook, but when I cook, it's an event, right? And I do enjoy very occasionally putting like an interesting meal together and inviting people over. Like I'll do that.
Right.
And I really love to like make different variants of Mexican food. That's my thing.
Nice.
But outside of that, I don't cook. So But which is challenging though, because cooking is kind of important to eating healthy. But I have
Right.
this meal plan. They send me healthy meals with they're pre. It's not frozen. It's like fresh, and so I've been doing that lately.
Right.
Or someone cooks for me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of times though, I'll only cook like half the meal. So like I'll cook chicken to go with like a boxed soup or something, right?
Hmm.
So I'm still like cooking, but I'm like kind of cheating at the same time. I do that quite often.
Yeah. Looking through the chat here. Now we know 09. Really love your Tears of the Kingdom playthrough stream, Andres. Have me hooked all the time. Did it for Sky Swords. Yeah, Sky Swords Alyssa's been doing a four heart run too. It's fun. Yeah, so we're gonna actually continue the stream probably Thursday. I do want to do the Tears of the Kingdom run more often, but I took a last stream. We're running into a lot of connection issues. The connection issues have been resolved. I have an announcement to make. I'm currently on fiber as of today.
Nice.
I had it installed today. So the times when the video comes out like at 7 p.m. Eastern, at 8 p.m. Eastern, or just not, or like my stream craps out, that's all because my internet just decides to not work. And for the record, the internet I have is supposed to be good beforehand, right? Like it was a gig, speed. The upload speeds were above average, but they would just not work, randomly twice a month or more, or get throttled because, whoa, you don't need upload speed. What's that? Here's 5% of the speed you pay for. Like, whatever. I'm getting rid of it, right? I had fiber installed today, so hopefully we don't have to run into those issues anymore. Actually, I could probably experiment and maybe do a higher bit rate. I mean, well, StreamYard only does 720p, so I'm not even sure. But like for the game streams, I could probably do a higher bit rate to increase the quality a little bit more. It's already been 1080 60, but just because it's 1080 60 doesn't mean like that. There's other factors.
Right.
Yeah.
I think YouTube has generally, because I went back and looked at what their recommendations are for streams and like their bitrate. It seems to be a lot higher than it used to be, because it used to be pretty low. So they might let you use more bandwidth these days. So you could experiment.
Yeah, I haven't messed with bitrate in a while, so
yeah. Back when I was doing it, like 4K streaming on YouTube was barely even better than 1080p because the bitrate cap was only like 8 megabytes per second or something.
Interesting. Yeah. So I may. Things will be slightly better now. Yeah, honestly, you guys are probably not going to notice that much of a difference, but for me, it's going to make a difference. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the stream might look a little bit better. The game streams, at least, because this is using a different app.
Right.
James Champagne, hi, Andres. Do you think they will talk about Prime 4 if they do a direct this month?
It's pretty possible. I mean, we've sort of touched on this before. It depends on like when the release date is and their plans for marketing. But if they want to have a long marketing cycle, I feel even if it is going to be held to next year, they could start talking about it now.
All right, so I'm going to tell you my crazy nonsense thinking on this. Well, okay, I'll tell you the logical thing first, and then I'll jump into pipe dream territory, right? So I want to kind of section these off here. So my logical thought is there's a chance the game is saved for this holiday, but my perspective, it's the kind of game Nintendo's going to save for the Switch 2 era, right? So whenever that Switch 2 era begins, Prime 4 I think will be part of the beginning of that. But we'll see. Maybe Nintendo just doesn't care about Metroid that much, and they just want to kind of give us something fun to play in the holiday. So it can kind of go either way, but I'm leaning towards it's being saved for Switch 2. So with that said, if this direct is just about Switch 1, I think I'm leaning towards. I still think I think there's an above 50% chance that Metroid Prime 4 will be in the direct. That's my logical thought, which maybe that's still wrong, right? I'm not saying it's going to be, right? I'm saying there's an above 50% chance because...
I would agree with that.
And this is why, right? Let's say there's a 50% chance Nintendo's saving Prime 4 for Switch 2 launch window. and there's a 50% chance they're going to have Prime 4 as the holiday title for this year instead. Of course, that operates under the assumption that Switch 2 is not coming out this year, which most reports seem to be suggesting. But there's also the possibility that Prime 4 is coming out, say, March 2025, right, as a launch window title, and they still show off Prime 4 during the Direct. So that's why I'm plus 50% on them showing it off.
It's almost like 75%, I guess, towards it.
I wouldn't say that. Like I'm not going to say that high personally. I'm like 50 to 55.
Right. I'm just saying if you do the straight math, I believe the math's out to that. Yeah. But yeah, I would say probably like 65, maybe 55.
Yeah. Now here's my pipe dream sort of scenario. My pipe dream scenario is technically, we don't know when Switch 2 is coming out.
Right.
All of the reports, technically, are rumors. Technically. So, they could be wrong. And wrong might more likely mean that the system comes out after March 2025. But I think there is an outside chance that Switch 2 is going to have a release holiday 2024 still. Which, again, this is the pipe dream me talking, right?
Right.
But I don't think it's 100% out of the question. And where this becomes more pipe dreamy is that I think Metroid Prime 4 is the launch title for Switch 2. Which, again, pipe dream. I know most people do not agree with that. Most people do not think that makes sense. That's my pipe dream. I think it makes some sense, though.
Idea. I mean, I will say this. Not that this is what Nintendo's goal is, but just let's say you want to pick the best developer that Nintendo has to showcase the Switch 2 and what it can do. I'm pretty sure Retro Studios is like the best developer they have for that. Like they push their systems more than almost any other developer in terms of like graphical fidelity.
Yeah, I mean,
what that means to Nintendo
showcase the system really well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so from that perspective, the game showcasing the system makes a lot of sense. And if they also think Metroid Prime is going to be a game that's going to is going to be a 3+ million seller, that's not a bad launch title. No. It really isn't. Now, is it going to be a 20+ million seller? It's kind of hard to when there's no history of a series doing that, it's hard to predict that, right? But, if it's, I don't think it's that crazy. Obviously, you want 3D Mario or Mario Kart. That seems to make more sense as a straight launch title, which is why I tend to lean launch window for Prime 4. But we'll see. Point is, going back to the main question, I think there's an above 50% chance we see Prime 4 in a general direct. But I'm 50 to 55, so it's almost a coin flip. Just a weighted coin flip. Anyway, I want to get to some super chats I got here. So, unless there's something else you wanted to say on that, Brandon.
No.
Okay. So Taker with a super chat. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Taker says, last year we did get an Indie World in April. I think we will likely get an Indie World soon. Yeah. So indies are important and they tend to do them. So I think, there could be that. Maybe even this week. Or if not this week, next week.
Possible.
So, we'll see though. Yeah, it's not confirmed. Sam Talks Games with a super chat. Thank you, buddy. Sam says, I really hope this April Direct happens because quite frankly, it's really hard being a Nintendo fan right now with how 2024 looks for them. LOL. Laughing out loud. I mean, I agree. I think, that they should have a Direct sooner than later. I think that, yes, while Nintendo has given us games to sort of be like, oh, we got games, they're not the kind of games that really excite the fan base. I don't know. I mean, apparently Princess Peach Showtime did pretty good, but pretty good compared to what else has happened this year is not very good necessarily. What?
I am still interested in playing Princess Peach Showtime when I can.
Have you played the demo?
Yeah.
You played the demo, right? Yeah. I
We talked about that.
Yeah, that's why I was like, right? You did? I was like kind of like thinking back. I I don't know. I actually had a little. I almost had a little bit of an itch today. I was like, oh, maybe I should play Princess Peach Showtime, but I don't have enough of an itch to spend $60 and waste 8 hours of my life for it. I'd kind of rather play something else.
I saw because I was waiting for reviews because I kind of thought that the game might get better past the demo section,
And it apparently does.
Yeah, apparently it does. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, cool. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's the best game ever, so I might wait for it to
It's
go
not
on
a bad
sale.
game. Yeah, I kind of have been. So what's interesting though is because Good Feel's a developer for Princess Peach Showtime. I've been. It's fun to now. It's nice to now say that with conviction because before it was like, yeah, we think it's Good Feel, but we don't know.
Right.
Now we know, and that's it's nice to know
so
that.
Weird.
Yeah. But well, what I was gonna say though is that I've been like I've been getting the itch to play Yoshi's Crafted World because I never played it back when it came out. Yeah, but it's
like
also still $60. Yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, that's on the eShop. Maybe what I should do is look at it on eBay.
Find a physical. Yeah.
eBay's probably a good place to order. I bet on Amazon it's like a slightly cheaper. Or Nintendo could just announce the Nintendo Select line and I get it for $20. That would be hype.
Nice.
Like Yoshi's Crafted World would be such a good Nintendo Select title. Even on eBay, it's like $40. Oh wait, this one's $14.
Yeah,
that's
sense.
worth it. That's worth
it.
Yeah,
that's definitely worth
Yoshi's Crafted World Switch replacement case only, no game. Screw you!
What?
That's why you got to read the fine print. I just saw it on Google, so that's why I clicked it. They didn't show that part. That explains why it's so much cheaper. Yeah.
Use Facebook Marketplace.
Where?
Facebook.
Oh, Facebook Marketplace? Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm not gonna shop while we're streaming forever.
It's $35.
It'd be funny if that actually might be an interesting, unique stream, like shopping for, like trying to find like cheap Nintendo games, like that's the live stream. That's an idea, actually.
Yeah.
Man, I should shut up because if people are watching this stream, I've been like slowly leaking out like different unique ideas I have.
They're stealing them from
you. I haven't actually revealed what the series is yet that I have. I've just been hinting at it hard, and with the next hint I'm gonna do, with the second hint, even though I've already given you the third hint, it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna out, but I think you're gonna be able to figure it out if you remember the other hints. Anyway. Yeah, as I talked about in the video today, I think an April Direct makes a lot of sense. You know, I thought this part was interesting. We've always had published Nintendo games in July, and there currently is not one announced. Now they could have a Shadow Drop announcement, but I guess the main point is that 7 of 7 times during the Switch era, there's been a July game. We don't know about a July game yet, and Nintendo, when they had the perfect opportunity to spread out Luigi's Mansion 2 and Thousand Year Door, especially because we already have Endless Ocean in May. They're like, nope, let's put Thousand Year Door also in May, and let's put Luigi's Mansion 2 in June, the very beginning of summer. It could have been at any point in summer because they only promised us a summer release initially. So it's very interesting that they're kind of positioned. Like we would have thought they would have been spreading things out, but they're not doing that. They're doing the opposite.
Right.
So I think they got stuff to show us, and I think it's happening this April, but obviously we don't know. Skysword Alyssa with the super chat as well. Thank you for the super chat, Alyssa. Alyssa says, yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Sometimes it means a lot. Yeah, you're welcome. I enjoy watching your expertise in Tears of the Kingdom. It's a good time. By the way, guys, if it's not clear, Skysword Alyssa is doing her own live stream of Tears of the Kingdom, a 4-heart run. She's pretty good at the game, so check out her channel. Yeah, it's a good time, and sometimes I'm there, so yeah. So let's end this poll here. Ooh, this is an interesting. So the poll had 67 votes, and I asked, is there a psychological term for simp? 51% said no. That is so hilarious. Close. For the 49% that said yes, what is the psychological term? Actually, Google is my friend, right? Is there a psychological term for simp? By the way, to spell psychological, because I was talking about how do you spell that? Think psycho and then logical. Psychological.
Yeah.
PSYCHO. The psych part is probably the harder part. PSY.
Yeah, I earlier I claimed that there was an H, and then I quickly also realized there was not an H. So, I'm not very good at spelling.
Yeah, so I'm googling. So I Google, is there a psychological term for simp? The first thing that comes up is a Wikipedia article for simp, and it just says simp is an internet slang term describing someone who shows excessive sympathy and attention toward another person, typically someone who does not. Yeah, I mean it's wiki. I'm not going to get into reading that. Quora, that's even worse. What is a simp? Later, social media glossary. Alana recovery. That almost sounds like something medical related. What causes people to simp? Simping is... Yeah, Reddit. Oh, dictionary.com.
Yeah,
dictionary.com. That's almost legit. Dictionary.com. What does simp mean? Simp is still a slang term. Simp is a slang insult for men who are seen as too attentive and submissive to women, especially out of a failed hope of winning some entitled sexual attention or activity from them. Interesting. Yeah. So how is this related to this video series that I've been kind of talking about? Like,
right.
Well, I'm not going to tell you because then the idea would be spoiled. But I do want to use this second of 3 hints, and I already gave you the third one, to kind of, one, hint at you what the series is about. And you may see the first episode tomorrow. But also, by the way, you guys aren't going to get it just from me talking about simp. Like, you're going to see the video tomorrow and be like, well, I didn't see that coming. But perhaps this one will help a little bit. It has nothing to do... Well, it could have to do with waifus, actually, but not necessarily. Waifus will be tangentially related, but it's not specifically about the waifus.
Facts.
Yeah. So, how should I put this question? What Nintendo character interests you most? It's actually a pretty vague hint.
I'm not even sure where you're going with this hint yet.
Yeah, I think I have to reroute the question. What Nintendo characters? If there's a word I want to use, but if I use that word, that's pretty much it. Just completely like the sentence. What Nintendo character interests you the most? Like that question doesn't give it away. But if I add one word in there, it gives it away.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the tough part. So I'm trying to not. All right, I got an idea. What Nintendo character's backstory do you want to learn more about?
And then what are the options?
What Nintendo character's backstory do you want to learn more about? I'm putting them down. Writing them. Brand, I mean, you should get this because I literally told you what it told you.
Yeah, but somehow the hint's not clicking for me.
Well, the thing is, the hint is not supposed to tell you. Okay, I don't want to spell it out either because then people will know.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the poll. I think I wrote it right. If I didn't, oh well. I didn't proofread it. All right, what Nintendo character's backstory do you want to learn more? What Nintendo character's backstory do you want to learn more about? And I put 4 options: Link, Bowser, Donkey Kong, Samus.
Okay.
No one's voted Donkey Kong, bro. Come on, come on. Well, I know which one I'm not making a video on now. All right.
I
So
do know which video ideas these are representing. I'm just not sure which word you're referring to that would spill out the general idea.
well, the thing is, I didn't use the word.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, if I use the word, then you would. Yeah. So, um, I'm not. I'm running the risk of spelling this out too well, right? But let's go back to the first hint. The first hint was the initial poll, which was actually I don't even remember what the third hint was. Actually, I do know. So the first hint was, is there a psychological term for simp?
Right.
Right. That was the first hint. That question. The second hint was that this might apply to the second or third, to like the third or fourth episode, which is really a subtle hint. And then the third hint is me asking what Nintendo character's backstory do you want to learn more about? And I put a few different options. So it's there. Those three hints, it's there. I think, but I don't know if you guys are gonna figure it out. But yeah. Well, how I'm kind of using this, though, I'm looking at the poll. I'm like, all right, so what should be the first episodes? And
right.
Interestingly, it's going. So I'll say this: the one that's Samus right now is winning the most. My initial idea had to do with Samus, and then I was like, wait, I could do this for more than one character. And then I was like, okay, what's the next best? And then I was like, oh, okay, Link would actually be this would actually be really interesting to do for Link. And then when I was talking about with Brandon, I was like, oh, well, you know what also would work for? Donkey Kong. Oh,
Right.
actually, work really well for Bowser too. Oh, here's another one. Luigi.
Yes.
Luigi. Yeah. And what's funny is that you guys I don't know if you guys have figured it out yet, what I'm even referring to. Anyways, the basic idea behind the series is that it's going to be a series. Hopefully, I'll do. If you guys watch the videos, maybe they'll do well, right? I kind of like, yeah, I do YouTube because I want to do it, right? But also, I am trying to make this. I mean, it is my job, right? But I want this to be a successful career, right? So, if I make if I make this series and they don't do well, then there's not much I can't like consistently do it, I would love to though. I think it has a ton of potential. But yeah, the basic idea is to, without spoiling fully what it is, it's going to be a series where we take a deeper look into character backstories from Nintendo and assessing their situations. That's kind of the a very basic, vague way of describing the series. Yeah. Maybe I'll do both. Maybe I'll do the Link and Samus episodes this week. I was gonna do Samus first, but then as I was doing some research, I was like, oh, I might need to spend a little bit more time on this one. Link, I could probably do a little bit easier. The reason why is because, well, we just had last year like that mega Tears of the Kingdom theory marathon, right? So the Zelda lore is a lot more fresh in my mind, so it's easier for me to kind of piece together what I want to say about that. The other one, I kind of need a little bit more time.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I also feel like the Link episode will do better, just because Zelda's a much bigger series. So,
yeah, potential.
Unless Nintendo announces Metroid Prime 4, it's like, hey, Metroid Prime 4 is coming out soon. Then all of a sudden, there's going to be a lot more natural intrigue for Metroid. Yeah. But anyways, weird, weird hints about series I'm working on aside. Like, what else should we talk about tonight? Because the whole point is to talk about what Nintendo's been cooking, right? So,
right.
Brandon, is there something in particular that you've been kind of thinking about that Nintendo's working on that you want to sort of point out there? Sorry for putting you on the spot. I just decided to ask you.
Right. I mean, you did mention one thing that piqued my interest to talk that I always do think of, because There's been some things that they've been cooking for quite some time that we have not seen, and that is a new Monolith Soft game. Because if there's one thing I want to see, it's a new Monolith Soft game on Switch 2. And that's far out, As far as for this year, I don't know if we're talking specifically this year or just talking open ended. I don't think they're gonna have anything for this year, unfortunately. It's probably a break year, but in terms of Switch 2 stuff, which maybe we could see this year. Just because it's not coming out this year doesn't mean we can't potentially see it this year if it's going to be early on into the Switch's life, or Switch 2's life. But that is a Monolith Soft project. Probably not Xenoblade. I assume the next Xenoblade game is going to be a bit, since we kind of wrapped up the trilogy. I assume they're going to do something like kind of new with Xenoblade after that, so it might take a little bit longer. But I'm kind of expecting to see the new IP that they've been working on since like 2017, 2018.
Right. I had a thought about this recently, actually, Brandon. I don't know if I brought it up to you. I might have. So forgive me if I'm just rehashing this something I've already said. I don't know. But because remember recently I made a video about maybe this concept of like a Hyrule Warriors, imprisoning war.
Right.
And ultimately, like, my thought process is, while that does make sense, I think they should move on from Zelda Warriors for now, right? And do another Nintendo series. We've already gone 2 Zelda Warrior games, not counting, remakes and remasters, right? And we've gone 2 Fire Emblem Warriors games. I think we should get another Nintendo series as a Warriors game, and the one that makes the most sense to me is Xenoblade Warriors. And so, a Xenoblade Warriors, I think, would make a lot of sense. And what's interesting about this, though, is that we could get a Xenoblade Warriors, and that's made by Koei Tecmo, right?
Right.
And it would actually be a really great way to keep the Xenoblade fan base engaged, while Monolith Soft puts out something else. So I could kind of see this scenario. We get a Xenoblade Warriors and Monolith Soft's new IP really early on into Switch 2, in the first year or two, right? And then a little bit later, we get a Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition on Switch 2. That would also be made by Monolith Soft. Right. And then maybe a couple of years later, then we actually see the next new Xenoblade game.
I'd be very happy with that.
That's a path I can kind of see sort of going here. Like, and Monolith Soft wouldn't develop the Xenoblade Warriors, but they would oversee some of it. So maybe it's like a co-development thing, actually, technically. But Koei Tecmo they make the Warriors games. So yeah, basically same way how the Zelda team oversaw Hyrule Warriors, same difference. So I can kind of see that happening. A Xenoblade Warriors is actually it makes it easier for them to be like, hey, let's do a new IP, and that way they don't have to worry about kind of keeping the Xenoblade hype going. Because they can do both.
That makes sense. I would like to see definitely them wait for Switch 2 for this, as you suggested. Because I was gonna say I don't want to see another Warriors game. I think I've said this on another podcast. I don't really want to see another Warriors game on Switch, just because I feel like they've tapped out everything that they can do in the system, and they're already running into issues trying to do what they were already doing. But I would love to see a Xenoblade Warriors game on Switch 2, because you got all the different blades and characters. Like, there's tons of Xenoblade characters over the 3 games, especially if you include blades. Though I would hope they would include. Yeah. Obviously, not the generic blades, but there's tons of like cooler blades that are, unique.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential. There's so much. They have so much material for a massive lineup, and many could have very unique movesets.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Xenoblade is which style they would go for. I assume they would try to replicate the look of Xenoblade 3, because that'd be the most current Xenoblade at the time.
I mean, I think 3 makes sense because it's the most current Xenoblade game. But also 3 does bring in both 1 and 2, right? And
Right. I'm
even
just in
though
terms
their
of like the art
characters.
style, like they would be going for, because obviously 1, 2, and 3 all have different art styles.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's if it's not 3, it's 2. But I think they go for 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think it'd be a 3 kind of thing. Yeah, that just makes the most. I mean, they could maybe look at 2 and be like, well, 2 has sold better, but the problem with 2 is that you would have to adapt all of the modern 3, Xenoblade 3 characters into 2 style when
Right.
all the Xenoblade 2 characters or most of them have already been adapted to 3. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
um and you could also argue that Xenoblade Warriors based off 3 would market 3 more and give it a little bit more, of a boost.
True.
I mean, 2's already gone like its smash boost. Like I think it's 2 is what it is. So that's my take on it, at least.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Looking through the chat here, Ronnie Fazio adds me, not video game related, but the facial hair is looking good, man. Thank you. Thank you. I enjoy looking like a young father. I don't know. I kind of feel like with a mustache, I feel like I have a 2-year-old kid now. That's how I feel like I look. I don't
Maybe
have a
so.
2-year-old kid unless you count my cat.
Sure, there's none hiding in your closet.
That sounds terrible, Brandon. You trying to get
That
me?
does sound really terrible,
What's wrong with
actually.
you, man? I thought you were my friend. Jesus, wild. Yeah. Venetus, can you smell what the end is cooking? I don't know. I'm just getting hungry.
Let
I'm
him
getting
cook.
hungry, man. I want like a barbecue.
Ooh.
I'm starving now.
Yeah.
But let's take this opportunity to talk about a couple things that I think are eminent.
Okay.
That's a dangerous word. I shouldn't have said that. I apologize. Because I don't know what's happening, right? But if we're gonna get an April Direct, that's gonna change a lot, right? Like the conversation has been, oh, what is there to talk about, right? And it's kind of like, well, we can speculate and make theories, but there isn't news. Like there isn't substantial
Right.
news. There was, I think, like a Xenoblade art book thing that came out recently. I didn't see that.
It was a leak.
It was a leak. I haven't even looked into it yet,
Think.
so I may look into that. Maybe that could be like a video I do potentially. But I have to take a look at it. I haven't. But yeah, there's just not a lot of news. There isn't. But that's gonna end eventually, right? Remember, I was talking about earlier, the absence of something is nothing, right? Like we're enjoying the nothing right now, but the something is coming. So yeah, I think that's gonna happen, right? Like we're going to get more news, and I think it's gonna be a direct. I mean, well, let's entertain the idea that there's not a direct in April, right?
Right.
What are we gonna do? Like, how do we survive until June without any more news?
Well, I mean, is there no shot of a May Direct?
I just don't. If we don't get an April Direct, I just at that point I would kind of start operating on the assumption, unless there's like some sort of like material out there that suggests, oh, it got pushed up a couple weeks, right? I would be thinking, well, this is more likely happening in June when it normally happens.
True.
So it's just I don't know if Nintendo wants to do that, but I mean, you can make the argument that it could be a product of like a drought, right? Because Nintendo's not going to have the really, they're in the middle of a transition, so they just have less to show. But as we talked about earlier, Nintendo could have spaced out the releases that they had already announced, and they didn't. I think that implies the opposite. That they have content ready. So what is that content? I think we have to let's say there's not an April Direct. At the very least, I expect that we will have an announcement for a July game by mid-May. And you may ask why.
Okay.
Earlier, I already mentioned how we've literally gotten a Nintendo published, at least one Nintendo published title every game in July throughout the entire Switch era. every single month, every time. I'm not lying. Like 2017 was Splatoon 2, 2018 it was Octopath Traveler and Captain Toad. 2019 was Fire Emblem Three Houses. 2020 was Paper Mario: The Origami King. 21 was Skyward Sword HD. 2022 was Xenoblade Chronicles 3. 2023 was Pikmin 4. Most of those are pretty substantial releases. So I kind of think history suggests that we're going to see something like that this July as well. But when are they going to announce that? Well, the reason why I'm saying by mid-May at the latest is because we go back to the pandemic year, the 1 year where the pattern of directs is really kind of completely out of whack because there isn't any major directs. It's because of the pandemic, right? Everyone was quarantining, things were changed, the industry was under a lot of flux. They did a social media announcement for the July game. They announced Paper Mario: The Origami King on, I believe, May 14th. So my impression is that if we don't have an April Direct, they are going to make a social media announcement for a July game by mid-May.
Seems fair.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thinking on that. Let me double check the date for that Origami King announcement. I'm pretty sure it was May 14th. Announcement trailer. Yep, May 14th. May 14th, 2020. Came out July. So, yeah. Got a super chat here. Actually, a gifted membership. Oh, Boo Mini gifting a membership. Thank you, buddy. Tall Show. Now member. Welcome. Yeah. I think there I mean, what kind of a game announced? What kind of game do you think is coming out in July, Brandon? Like, what makes sense for July? And what's interesting, we think about the games we've gotten in July. So, 2017 was Splatoon 2. 2018 was Octopath Traveler, which is pretty cool, right? That was like almost like a partial publishing, but there was also Captain Toad. 19 was Fire Emblem Three Houses, a big brand new Nintendo game. 2020 was Paper Mario: The Origami King, a big brand new Nintendo game. 2021 was Skyward Sword HD, which was at the time hotly, eagerly anticipated, right? And then 2022 was Xenoblade Chronicles 3, like one of the best games on Switch. And then 2023 was Pikmin 4, also one of the best games on Switch. Like, July has been a really killer month for Nintendo. So I'm very curious on what would be the July game.
It's hard to say because it could really be
anything, right?
Yeah.
And it could be more than one thing. It could be a combination.
I mean, man, because like the two that come to mind for some reason are Wind Waker and Skyward Sword HD, and then
Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess.
Right. Well, Skyward Sword.
Wind Waker and right. Yeah. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess because of Skyward Sword HD is what I meant.
Right. No, I get you. Yeah, I'm just yanking your chain here. So
yes. And then for some reason, I mean, maybe if Donkey Kong's just like a 2D side scroller game, maybe it gets announced and it comes out then, because that'd be a pretty big, cool game.
In a good way.
I'd be excited for it, but at the same time, I'd be like, oh, not a 3D game. But
like I don't need it to be I don't need it to be a 3D game. I just want them to do something fresh, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's been a while since we've got a 2D Donkey Kong as well. So
yeah, I really feel like they got to do something. Actually, I had a dream the other day. In the dream, I dreamed that they made several announcements. I don't always dream about Nintendo making announcements, just for the record. I'm not 12 anymore. Yet I still sometimes do, so maybe I am 12. But anyways, one of the announcements was I'm trying to remember the name correctly. You know how dreams are; it's hard to remember everything exactly. One of the announcements was for Donkey Kong Jungle Bash. So we're clear. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat was a GameCube game made by the same team that went on to make Mario Galaxy. Just so we know our history here. And Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is a side-scrolling Donkey Kong game that doesn't have the country moniker. But what's cool about it is that it has 3D boss fights. The camera pulls behind the shoulder, and it's like a boxing match with a whole bunch of cool Kongs. And the graphics for GameCube back then were insane. But you also could play with the bongos. So in my dream, it's basically it's a new game, but also a remaster at the same time. So it's like a combo pack. You get Donkey Kong Jungle Beat upscaled, but then you also get a new campaign, and it was just called Donkey Kong Jungle Bash. Obviously, that's just the dream, right? I'm not even trying to make it out to be like super logical, but that was a dream, and I was like, oh, that'd be really damn cool. I hope they do that.
Sorry, I was responding to an important text message.
Was it Miyamoto telling him to make Donkey Kong Jungle Bash?
It was.
Okay.
It was, in fact, bad.
I appreciate that.
It's definitely going to happen. It's coming soon, guys.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, I think, like, honestly, like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, if there was, like, a 2D Donkey Kong game, that would be a July release. That would be a big release for July.
Yeah.
Nice. And I think it kind of makes sense because you look at the games we've gone so far, right? You got January was Another Code Recollection, February is Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and then March Princess Peach Showtime. Like, Princess Peach Showtime is kind of like the big deal game, right? January and February are not big deal games. Then April, we don't have anything announced for April, right? We're kind of operating the assumption that there is a shadow dropped game, during a direct, hopefully, right?
Yes.
Maybe Metroid Prime 2, right? And then early May, we're getting Endless Ocean, which I'm excited for. I think you're excited for, Brandon, as well. But it's a super niche title. Like,
right.
A lot of people don't even realize it's a Nintendo game. It is. So, But later in that month, we're getting Thousand Year Door, which is exciting, but also a remake. And then Luigi's Mansion 2, which is not even a remake. Some people they're going to call it an upscale. It's more than an upscale. It's a remaster. It's actually, I think, a solid remaster. But point is, that's what it is, right? And so you can make the argument that we're almost due for like a brand new kind of biggest title. And I think a new Donkey Kong game in July would be very fitting from that perspective. But not only that, Brandon, the park is opening in spring. So a Donkey Kong game in July is actually, I would argue, is fairly well timed.
Right.
It's in the thick of summer where people can enjoy, a nice quality Nintendo game. Some people may check out the park in Japan. Like, I think the timing of it kind of checks out pretty well.
That's
so
good cross promotion there.
If you're right, Brandon, kudos to you.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Another prediction in the bag.
Yeah. It would be awesome. What's crazy though is we get a Donkey Kong game in July. I think that really will start to change the tune on how people feel about the year. Like, especially if the other things I have in mind happen. So this is kind of like my process, like what I'm thinking, in terms of how they could fill things up. So we got a direct in April. Metroid Prime 2 is shadow dropped, so that becomes an April game, right? We already mentioned Endless Ocean, all that stuff. Let's say you're right, Brandon. July is a 2D Donkey Kong game, maybe Jungle Beat style, where it has some 3D moments, maybe like very Metroid Dread-like, right? But jungle Donkey Kong themed,
right?
And then it's hard to pin down what else they'll do, but let's say they release Twilight Princess Moonraker HD at some point second half of the year, right? That or 2D Zelda, one or the other. And then there is the rumors of the Black and White Pokemon remake that also happens. That's a pretty good. I'm not saying 2D Zelda and the Zelda remasters, right? It's one or the other, right? But that's something Zelda, right? Pokemon remake, and maybe there's a new Mario Party after Donkey Kong. Then let's say they shall drop Metroid Prime 3 in a September Direct. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I'd be okay with that. Especially if they shall drop Kirby's Air Ride, which that's me just that's wish list territory, but I think it's good wish list. So I don't know. But I at least kind of feel good about your Donkey Kong idea for July. It makes a lot of sense. But let's say it's not a new game. What would make sense as like a remaster instead?
Well, I mean, there's no more obvious remake, I should say, or remaster than Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD.
Have I not been talking about Kirby's Air Ride all night?
How can I forget?
Yeah. Brandon, I'm actually curious on this, right? This has been my thought, and I know a lot of people disagreed with me. Maybe this could be a debate. I think it's at least a video idea, but then people will complain that I keep making the same videos and then not watch the unique ones,
Right.
But so this video idea would be talking about why I think Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD would be coming in a collection and not separately. Like I think it's something that could be expanded on. Like I would want to do maybe a little bit more research and kind of looking to see if it makes sense or not. But my impression is that it does.
This isn't. Maybe there's no logic to this, but I want to toss you a scenario where they don't get packaged in a collection, and in fact, then this is gonna be crazy. Okay, so this is gonna be crazy. They're not going to be releasing Twilight Princess HD on Switch at all. Only Wind Waker HD, because they have future plans to potentially not at the beginning of Switch, because they might have this Ocarina of Time remake plan, but they have further plans to remaster or remake Twilight Princess, because I do feel like Twilight Princess HD it was a decent-ish effort, but it didn't really excite people. There was a lot of people who complained about it, and I think they could go way, way further without even taking that much effort, honestly. Wind Waker is kind of like, peak Wind Waker style with Wind Waker HD. There's some stuff they could do, but you don't really need to. But with Twilight Princess, they could go so far with a full remake or even just a better remaster.
All right, well, let's just go wild with this. I like your thinking.
Let's go.
Love it. Beautiful. All right, so let's say Twilight Princess is not happening, because you're right, they're gonna remake it later. They're saving. They're like, you know what? We should just remake this years down the road. Of course, technically they could do both. They could just do both. But if they were to do what you're saying, then with Wind Waker, I think it kind of raises the expectation of what it should be. Because in my eyes, you don't re-release a re-release without doing something to it. Right? So that's why part of why I make the argument that, hey, Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD, I'm not talking about these getting visually enhanced or improved on Switch. No, I think they basically just ripped them from the Wii U and strip down the features, so the gamepad features, right? So they actually be lesser. But if you put them in as a collection, it's not lesser anymore. And you kind of look at the history of Nintendo revisiting remasters again. This is kind of one of those things where maybe I want to do like a bigger video on it, because I think there's some more research to be had. But some of the ones that come to mind for me, you look at, for example, Super Mario 3D All Stars, right? Mario 64 is in there and it's remastered, but once upon a time they actually revisited Mario 64 prior. That Mario 64 came out in Nintendo 64 in 1996, but then for the launch of the Nintendo DS back in holiday 2004, the launch title was Super Mario 64 DS. And so that had new content, different art, different visuals. It was repurposed for the DS. I guess you could call it like a reimagining, remake kind of thing. So Super Mario 3D All Stars is an example of revisiting a re-release again, right? Now it's based off the original, so it's not exactly the same, but it is an example. And in this example, the way they thought it made sense was by having it as a part of a collection. So that's kind of something that, I sort of look at, right? But then here is another example, Metroid Prime. So Metroid Prime, originally a GameCube game, but was then re-released as a collection in Metroid Prime Trilogy on Wii.
Right.
And then they had to do something different for it. Again, they couldn't just put Metroid Prime Trilogy again. Instead, they did a full-on proper remaster of the original. And so the point I'm trying to make with this is that when you look at, there's another example I'm trying to pull out of the back of my brain. I know I have one, but I can't think of it at this moment. But there's a few examples where Nintendo revisits a game a second time, but when they do, they have to do it differently. It's not just, oh, we already did this once, let's just bring it over again. There's no history. I can't think of it, at least. There's no history of Nintendo revisiting a game they've already revisited and just rehashing it without changing it in some way, which is why it's part of why I made the argument that, listen, they already remastered both of these games on Wii U. If they're going to do it again, it has to be changed in some way. And maybe it's not a Zelda collection, but if it's not a Zelda collection, we're not getting both games in the same year. It's going to be it's going to be just one, and they're going to kind of take or reassess the game, in my opinion.
Okay.
If it's not a Zelda collection, right? And let's say your idea that they decide, hey, you know what? Let's not re-release Twilight Princess HD. Let's save this concept and rebuild Twilight Princess years down the road. Make it look like the tech demo, if not better. And so that leaves just Wind Waker. And so if my thinking on this is correct, as I think history does suggest, right? I want to pull up more examples, right? But they're not going to just re-release Wind Waker HD as is. They have to adapt it for Switch because of the lack of Wii U features, but they're not going to just put out a lesser version without doing anything else. So what do? Remember those missing dungeons?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think is what they're going to do. I don't believe that.
Seems like it'd be a lot of work.
It would be a lot of work. I think what is easier is just doing a Zelda collection of both. There's a lot less development time. You just take both games, put it in there, take out some features. There you go. That's it. Maybe we'll put them at 60 FPS. Yeah, I think that would work. And if you want to even make it like a special Zelda's collector's edition, it doesn't even have to be $60. Like if people want to think, oh well, Nintendo would never put both games for $60, I disagree. But if it's more believable to you, if this is a collector's pack, it's maybe even a limited release like 3D All Stars, and it's not even $60. Let's say it's $80, but it comes with like an art book or something, which I probably would eat up. I think Zelda fans would be really excited if they're kind of put some sort of memorabilia attached to it. It would be pretty cool. Yeah. Anyways, I think it'd be interesting if they did kind of repurpose Wind Waker in some way. But that's my main point. I don't think they're going to just rehash the same things again after they already were rehashed. They're going to do something to change it up.
Yeah, I doubt that they would just release like one of them for really cheap. And I don't know if people would be that excited to buy Wind Waker HD for $60 on Switch. I don't know. Maybe it would sell a lot, but
people will counter by saying, well, they did that for Skyward Sword, but that misses the point. Skyward Sword had never been remastered before. Skyward Sword HD was a new experience. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess already exist. It's not just a sales thing. As much as people like to think that, Nintendo is just pure business and all the decisions they make are 100% business related, that is absolutely a heavy factor. There's a little bit more to it than that, though. There is kind of like, artistic integrity, and there is a little bit of, this is fun and cool. Like, it's not just, hey, is this going to make us money? Because if that was the case, then why would we get things like another Code Recollection?
I would say that their strategy to make money incorporates those ideas and concepts.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's something to that. Like you want to maintain a good brand as well, right? There's a little bit of a balance.
Well, they're all about their brand.
Exactly, right? So that's kind of part of the equation, and maybe it's a little subjective. It's hard to kind of quantify how much that impacts their bottom line dollar, the protection of their brand. But some of that does come down to artistic integrity, right? If Nintendo starts to show a lack of artistic integrity, then that does hurt their brand. Now, how do you quantify that? What counts as damaging their artistic integrity? Because that is a very subjective thing.
Right.
These are all factors, but my point is simply that, it's not just, bottom line, this, it's just gonna make them money. It's just a little bit more nuance is really all I'm trying to say.
Right.
So yeah, I think that they're not going to double rehash. They'll rehash once, but they need to do something to change it. So anyway,
Yeah, and as you said,
Yeah.
I mean, they can do both. They can do the collection and still do something more with Twilight Princess later.
yeah, I
And
mean,
it'd probably be a
if
Switch
they,
2 exclusive as well, whereas this would be
or
on Switch 1.
or maybe Switch 3 exclusive by that point.
Perhaps.
Because I mean, well, let's do a timeline. Like you kind of alluded to, Ocarina of Time remake happening first. And if we're gonna remake Ocarina of Time, maybe they can then move on to Twilight Princess. But wouldn't it kind of like, if they go back and they revisit Ocarina of Time, maybe they should go back and revisit Majora's Mask, and then maybe do Twilight Princess.
Maybe.
I mean, to your point, like they don't have to do Majora's Mask. They could skip.
Majora's Mask is just. Majora's Mask is a nice cult following, but in terms of like mainstream popularity, I think it's way less popular than Ocarina of Time. I would wager.
Sure.
So they don't necessarily have to do Majora's Mask just because they did Ocarina of Time, but there are a lot of assets that would be shareable, so they could easily or more easily do that. But it doesn't even have to be the same studio necessarily, and it doesn't have to be necessarily like a full. I mean, we don't know how ambitious this Ocarina of Time remake is going to be, but it doesn't have to be as ambitious as that.
Doesn't. That's true.
It could be more of like a Metroid Prime thing, where it's a visual remake, but the core gameplay is exactly the same. It's all intact.
Yeah, I think about that, and I think part of the problem with that is that Ocarina of Time, I think it needs to be reimagined a little bit. I think you agree with me on that.
For Ocarina of Time, but I think Twilight Princess is probably more fine. I mean, they could do that later, but it's a lot newer than Ocarina of Time, so maybe they wait to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like,
they haven't ever done like a full
Paper Mario
remake
1000
for it.
Door, right? Like, but that
Ocarina of Time got Ocarina of Time 3D, but it just got Twilight Princess HD, which isn't really nearly as much of a difference.
No, I think Twilight Princess, it's a good game. I replayed it recently. I don't think it's aged poorly.
No,
but do I feel like
Twilight Princess?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that they could. Honestly, to me, what the most important thing they need to do for the game is just like it's really balancing the difficulty and maybe offer a little bit more reason to spend money and collect things. Like I think maybe a better balance of side questing and boss difficulty is what they need to address for Twilight Princess. Otherwise, also the introduction needs to be streamlined even more so.
I actually really like the introduction, but
I do too.
I get it doesn't have mainstream appeal. I think it has its own appeal though. That's very Nintendo.
Yeah.
I think Skyward Sword has a bad intro.
I like it from a story perspective. But I understand.
It's fine. I think Twilight Princess is a cool intro because you're like living the life of a farmer. Like you get to do like cool little mini games and you fish and stuff. Like and then you like learn about the life of the people who live there and you kind of are invested in the place where Link comes from instead of Link just being like this guy who just comes from some random place.
Yeah, I think part of the thing for me with Twilight Princess is that they showed us a lot of footage of things that never materialized into the final game. And it'd be cool if they could kind of go back to that. Like there was,
for sure.
I remember seeing this one part of one of the early trailers where Link's getting chased by a giant spider, which presumably is Goma, in like the woods. Like we don't see those woods in the game, and we do fight Goma, but in a completely different setting, and the fight looks completely different.
Right.
So yeah, it's just kind of like it just feels like there were a lot of concepts and ideas that they had in mind. I mean, it's not feel, it's like factual because they showed us official trailers with these concepts and ideas, and they didn't make it into the
Right.
final game.
I do feel
So
like
I
they've
would like
been
to see that
working on
someday.
these same concepts though with games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and I assume their next game will further more concepts.
Do you
Maybe we
want to
will
be
see huge
Do you,
giant spider
yeah,
going
well,
through the woods.
do you want to see that? Do you want to be chased by a giant spider in a thick wood
In real life, hell no.
in a
In this
game?
game, sure, yeah,
Really? I
yeah, as long as it's not too terrifying. I
okay.
am scared of spiders, pretty scared. I don't like watching the second Harry Potter movie sometimes because
Oh,
the spider scenes. Like I'll watch it, but I sometimes I close my eyes during some scenes.
all
But
right.
not I could probably deal with it in Zelda game.
Okay.
I mean
Well,
I don't get scared of Goma, so
I get scared of Goma and Ocarina of Time.
as a kid, yes, I
Yeah,
did.
like
As a kid, everything in Ocarina of Time was terrifying. That game was so scary.
yeah, to be clear, yeah, I can beat the Forest Temple and not the Forest Temple, like the Deku Tree in like 3 minutes, right? Or
Facts.
that might be a minor exaggeration, but it's quick,
More like
right?
15, 20.
It's very quick.
Maybe half
And
an
the
hour.
boss is a cakewalk, but it has so much atmosphere. And as a kid, like you, I thought it was terrifying. I was scared to go in.
Yeah.
I was scared to go in. I would walk in really slowly, be like, I don't want to look up. I don't want to look up, but I don't know what to do. Like, like there was definitely that feel. Anyway, I got a couple super chats here I wanna get to. Actually, they've been sitting here for a little while, so I apologize for the delay. But this one here is from James Champagne. I hope you're still here. Thank you for the super chat. James asks, do you think Shadow drop with Prime 2 in April? Yes, I do.
Ooh.
Now, like, I think that there's got to be a game that's gonna be Shadow dropped, and well, okay, Metroid Prime 2 makes a lot of sense, but there is another game.
Chance.
There's another game that I think could be Shadow dropped instead of Metroid Prime 2. That's Luigi's Mansion 1. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they could. Yeah, very simple.
Yeah, like
HD
exactly.
version.
Very basic, simple, like nothing overly done. Like it would probably be like half price. Like imagine picking 1 and 2, but it's just Luigi's Mansion 1.
Right.
Upscaled visuals, upscaled, like literally like take the GameCube game, widescreen, 1080p, like not even enhancing the textures, like very simple. It'll look nice. Like think Dolphin.
Good, yeah.
Like a Dolphin emulation, basically. It'll look cool.
I played it that way.
Yeah, and it
looks good.
Luigi's Mansion is a good looking game. And more people will play that than the Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I don't know if they actually will,
it's a better game. But I do think Luigi's Mansion 2 is a game worth playing for sure.
Yeah.
I have actually only seen people play it, so I can't even fully say it because I haven't played it myself.
I'm looking forward to 2, but I also like 1. 1 is just really good because it can be played in a sitting, like a really long sitting, but like you could sit down with a friend and for like 4 hours and beat it.
Yeah, I'm curious if I went back to my streams and counted up how long it took me, but it was only a couple of streams, like 2 or 3 streams maybe, and I finished the game.
Yeah, so if you're, it's kind of like I could probably sit down and beat Metroid Dread in 1 sitting. It's one of those things where once you know the game, you kind of like replay it for high score. It's just a really replayable, fun game. Like imagine it's Halloween, you're like, you know what, I want like a proper, like Luigi's Mansion 1's like a really good, oh, let's play this on Halloween kind of thing. It's nice. So, yeah. Yeah, so if we don't get Metroid Prime 2, I'm kind of thinking Luigi's Mansion 1 because you want to kind of complete the trilogy, I think. It's going to be weird to have 3 and 2 and not 1. Like, I just think that's going to be weird. So,
yeah.
I think they're going to eventually put it on there. Even if it's not in April, I think they'll eventually put 1. And not like a full-on rework, right? Like, basic Shadow Drop remaster kind of thing. But next super chat here. Actually, you know what? I'll take around to get to, but I feel like I didn't. James asked me about Metroid Prime 2, and I started talking about Luigi's Mansion 1. So, I think Metroid Prime 2 could happen. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I think there's, as I said, like it was my first thought to your question is yes, right? But as I said earlier, there's other options. I think a lot of it ties into Metroid Prime 4 marketing, right? So I can easily see a scenario where Nintendo finally gives us a trailer for Metroid Prime 4. But they also give us a Metroid Prime 2 now. Like I could see like something like that happen. Like I think Metroid Prime 2 would be tied to Metroid Prime 4 marketing in some way. Maybe it's nothing like they didn't do it for 1, but I think it was a timing thing. I think as we're getting closer now, it's kind of like, well, you got to say something. You can't. I don't think you release 1 and then 2 and not say anything. So I just think it factors into the equation.
Yeah, and then I think when you have in September, you might have another, little teaser trailer, and then you show off Metroid Prime 3.
Yeah, and then Prime 4 comes out March 2025 as a Switch 2 launch title. You heard it here for the 5th time.
Facts.
Yeah. I don't necessarily actually think that's happening, for the record, guys. I want
launch
that to
window,
happen.
though.
Yeah, launch window.
I do think.
Yeah. Some people think it's a holiday game this year, but we'll see.
It's a decent chance of that, but that's not what I'm leaning towards.
Also, it's not what I want because I want to play the game in the best form possible day one.
Yeah.
But everyone has different feelings on it, so we'll see. Anyway, next super chat here from Taker. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Taker says, what would you think if we see Switch 2 revealed in June, then Prime 4 for Switch is announced for November, and there will be a Switch 2 version at launch? I'd be disappointed. Unless the Switch 2 version is also coming out in November.
Right.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be disappointed about Switch 2, and I would play Prime 4 immediately on Switch. And the other element to this is if they do this, I would expect a free upgrade of Prime 4 on Switch 2.
Right.
Or if not free, like really, really cheap, or free through Switch Online. Because I wouldn't want to have to buy the game a second time. I think like, yes, you might argue, well, it's a good business move. Is it though? Because I don't think it would be.
If I have to buy the game twice, then honestly, like I love Metroid Prime, but I've not played 2 and 3, and I'm not like a diehard Metroid fan or anything close to that. So I could wait. Like if they were like, oh, you have to buy it again on Switch 2, I'll just buy it on Switch 2. I'll just wait.
Yeah, some people will wait. Some people, it just doesn't feel right to me that they would do that. Now, the Switch 2 is like a ways off, right? Like if we're talking about Switch 2 coming out like 2026 or something, that's a little different because that's a big gap. But I don't see that though. I mean, actually, even in that scenario, right? Let's use Tears of the Kingdom as an example. I would still have a bad taste in my mouth if there was a Tears of the Kingdom version at launch for Switch 2 and we have to pay $70 for it again. If we already have it on Switch, that would still leave a bad taste in my mouth. So Prime 4 with an even shorter window between releases, I don't like it. I don't think it'd be a good fit. And you're gonna place a lot of people in a bind because, like, I'm gonna be in the position where I want to play. I know, and this is some people may say, oh, what you're asking for is like out of the ordinary. I don't think it is. I think a lot of hardcore gamers will look at something like Metroid Prime 4, and if they know there's a better version, they will want to wait for that version. Brandon, you just said you want that, right? But at the same time, there's been this long wait and anticipation. We're going to want to play the best version, but if they put out a lesser version first, that I don't think you do that. I don't think that makes sense. Now, maybe they just straight up don't even announce a Switch 2 version, right? And they just do that. And then down the road, like, hey, guess what? You can enhance Prime 4 on Switch 2. Like, if that's done later on down the road in terms of branding, marketing, sure. But also, I would not expect it to be as enhanced as well.
I just don't expect them to wait that long to talk about it.
Yeah. I think part of the kind of like, it's not an issue, but just like a consideration to like the overall conversation about this topic right now is that there isn't any leaker out there with a lot of strong credibility that's saying that there is a cross-gen Metroid Prime 4 version. Like Nate the Hate, right, was one of the considered one of the better leakers out there, right, has said that he's only heard of a Switch 1 version. And so that is not him trying to imply that there is not a Switch 2 version. He thinks it makes sense for there to be a Switch 2 version. He's simply stating he hasn't heard of a Switch 2 version. And so I understand some people may hear that and think that means there isn't any version. Say that again, Brandon.
I wouldn't say we've heard much about any version of this game.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said there. I think I've mentioned before that I've personally heard mumblings of a Switch 2 version, but I also don't know how much credence I should put into that. Like, not going to make a video about that. Like, it's not a report, you know? It's not that. So I just wouldn't, you know, I'm just saying it because we're chatting, right? But like, I don't put much stock into it. I'm not saying I don't trust the people who've mentioned that to me. I just don't think there's not enough compelling evidence, you know, for me to be like, hey guys, this exists, or I believe this exists. Like, this
is fact.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I wouldn't put too much stock into it. But logically, I think it makes sense for that to happen. But anyways, to your question, Taker, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like if they had like a 4 to 6 month gap of 2 different Prime 4 versions, and we get the lesser version first, and then have to buy another version later. It would be weird. I don't think they should do that. You're going to divide the fan base as well. Like, the hardcore Metroid Prime fans are going to want to play the best version day one, and some of us are going to wait, and some of us are not. Like, it seems too messy, in my opinion.
Yeah, but not like that.
I think it makes more sense to just not have a Switch 2 version then. Yeah. Now, again, as I said earlier, sometimes how you spin it and market it to people, it's a whole other thing. Like, you know, if you don't even mention a Switch 2 version, right? The same way they haven't mentioned a Switch 2 version of Tears of the Kingdom, and then maybe a couple years from now, like, hey, like, here's an enhanced version of Tears of the Kingdom. Here's an enhanced version of Metroid Prime 4. A little different, right? Optics matter a lot, I think.
Or if they just market it as like a patch or something.
Yeah, like a patch. That's different. I would still be annoyed though. Because I would be like, oh, I could have played this like as my first playthrough.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Timing matters because, like, yeah, there are times when I want to play a game again when, like, oh, there's an enhancement to this game. Okay, that's cool. I want to go back and kind of play with these enhancements, you know, like remakes and remasters. But there needs to be like a healthy gap between my initial playthrough and that new, you know, revised, enhanced playthrough. It's if you do it a few months later, it just feels wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like I just played this.
Yeah. So, all right. I think it's interesting. I've had this poll up for 54 minutes, 126 votes. I had asked, what Nintendo character's backstory do you want to learn more about? I'm ending the poll. And it's essentially a tie between Link and Samus, right? So I put Link, Samus, Bowser, and Donkey Kong. Link technically wins here, but it's like probably by the difference of a vote or two because they're both at 30%. Exactly. They're both at 38%, which is awesome because they're going back and forth the whole time. And then Bowser and then Donkey Kong. So I'm taking notes because this is definitely going to impact a series that I will try and give a whirl really soon. You may even see a video of the first episode tomorrow. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be interesting. But there was something I wanted to ask you guys. This is going to be the final poll for the night. We're wrapping up here. So guys, if there's any final questions or contents or ideas you want us to talk about or you want to ask, do it now. We're wrapping up. But this is the question I wanted to ask you guys earlier. Would you be happy with Wind Waker HD for $60? For $60, no scrapped Wii U features at 60 FPS. I think I wrote that right. Would you be happy with Wind Waker HD for $60? No scrapped scrapped Wii U features at 60 FPS.
Right.
Or Switch, in case you think I'm talking about something else. All right. Would you be happy with Wind Waker HD for $60? The double space. Scrapped Wii U features at 60 FPS for Switch. Scrapped meaning gone. No extra map, no tingle bottles. Curious what you guys think of this. Because I just want to point out, I feel that when I have these debates with people about what they're going to do for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, and feel free to chime in the chat if you feel differently on this, right? But because I know a lot of people don't agree with me that they're going to do a collection, right? But my question is, what do they then do? Because it feels like the argument is they're going to give us the games separately, but because it's not on Wii U, they have to scrap the Wii U features. There is no Miiverse. Yeah. There's no second screen. They have to scrap the features. This is not a matter of adapt. They can't. Not really. So they would scrap the Wii U features. Maybe they do 60 FPS, right? Because they did that for Skyward Sword HD. And they priced it at a full price game. I don't think this is what they're going to do. I think they're going to do this if it's both games in one. That's that's been my argument. So I'm curious what you guys think, though. Brandon, I feel like we kind of already shared our thoughts on this. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
No, I just don't see what they could. I mean, they could add new content, I guess. But
what do they add?
I don't know.
I mentioned the scrap dungeons, but like, how likely is it they're going to go back to the drawing board there, or like back to the initial projects and just like totally redo or create a dungeon and put it in the game? Like, how likely is that?
Not very likely.
It's not.
I can't think of improvements that you would necessarily make on Switch 1. Like on Switch 2, I think it'd be cool if they did some kind of like ray traced version of the game, because I think that they could do some cool stuff with that. Yeah. But obviously that's not going to work on Switch 1, and that'd be a bit of a project. It's not something quick to get out more content for the year. I don't see what you would add. Maybe they release it for $40 or something, but I feel like they just value the Zelda brand too much to release a game.
I could see that.
For $40.
I could see that. If we're not gonna do a collection, release it for $40 at 60 FPS without any of the Wii U features. Like, I could see
buy
that.
It.
Yeah.
If for $40, I would buy it.
I also think they would have released Twilight Princess around the same time, and also for $40. Buy both for $70. Yeah. That would work. That's basically my collection idea. Just saying. I'm interested. I'm curious how the poll is actually pretty divided. I guess that just goes to show how many people want Wind Waker HD.
Oh, it's 50-50 now?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, it started with the way more popular.
No, but it's more even now.
It was exactly. Now it's not.
Yeah, but it's wild. It's actually now it's crazy how.
Is there a secret plan amongst the chat to keep it 50-50? What's going on here?
No, what was wild to me though is it kind of started off like 70-65 no, and now it's
Yeah,
50-50, but
no.
I almost feel like yes is gonna win now. I don't know.
Yes
I
was
don't know.
falling down anywhere
Yeah,
between like 25 and 15% before. Now
this
it's
is interesting.
this is close. This is
Well,
crazy.
we'll see how the poll goes. Let's check in with the chat so we and then we'll close out. I'll revisit the poll before we finish. Don't let me forget. Um,
I'll try.
yeah. Let's see if I missed some ads from earlier. I don't see any recent ones. Oh, Nishwick Pops, what's up, buddy? I mentioned this somewhat earlier. Did you see the info from the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 art book? I haven't really looked into it. I've seen people talking about it on Twitter. But I do want to take a look. So yeah, but I haven't like analyzed it or anything like that. I've just seen
I've
some
seen like
pieces
a
of art people have
few.
shared.
Yeah, I've seen a
Yeah.
few pieces of art. And that's it.
Yeah. AB James earlier. The tutorial stuff on Skyloft and Skyward Sword early on took too long, and the Sky Ceremony and all that. The game doesn't ramp up until you skydive down the sacred grounds, Faron Woods. There's a lot of like build up to the overall gameplay loop. I enjoy that stuff because I like the story of Skyward Sword, but it makes it less replayable. Yeah, looking through the chat here. Netweed09, Tears means a lot to me. Open world temples. I like Skyward Sword a lot, but overall, Tears became Edge of Skyward Sword. Windmaker and maybe Twilight Princess all out for me, falling just short of the super OG greats. Interesting. Okay. I'm not sure how I feel. They're all really good games. So yeah. The thing is, I'm actually
Tears of the Kingdom isn't even in my top 3.
I think if you play it a second time, you'll change your mind.
I don't think it would.
Well,
I think it would probably actually put it lower.
I remember you not liking it, like being pretty disappointed with it, actually.
Yeah, I mean it's a great game, but it's just not what I wanted.
Yeah, the thing is, I think you expecting more newness out of it, like more new areas and variety. I think that's really that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of why you feel the way you do about it.
I was expecting them to change more things, but they kind of just gave you more tools to do in a very much similar environment. I think obviously they changed a lot, but it wasn't nearly as much as I thought. They reused a lot of content, which I felt the game would have actually been better if they just left the content out. Because I got tired of getting rewarded with pieces of content I got in Breath of the Wild.
I don't know if you heard about did you hear about the Tears of the Kingdom GDC panel?
I mean, I was aware that they did one, but I did not watch it.
Did you see, Mom? You can say no, Brandon. Don't feel ashamed. I understand. But did you by any chance see my video from a couple days ago talking about the potential of Zelda on Switch 2?
No.
Okay. So I only asked because I brought up the GDC panel in that video. But from the recent GDC panel, they talk about the concept of multiplicative gameplay. And so the overall idea is that the Zelda team they established this with Breath of the Wild, right? Like there's different layers of mechanics in the game. And, because they layer on top of each other and they polish the game up enough so that it doesn't break the game, it creates a lot of unique scenarios for different playthroughs. And they built upon this even more so for Tears of the Kingdom, right? I think that you pretty much understand. But they did this in a variety of ways. Like they made everything physics based,
right?
Everything, including audio. So, the sounds we hear from like let's say like we create a paddle in the water, that they created physics based audio on top of that, which to me kind of blows my mind, right? It's almost like the Zelda team. What they've been doing is they've been building a living, breathing world. You think about it, like they're creating laws that govern an environment, and they're building.
I would be surprised
it's just interesting
if for the next Zelda they use ray traced audio, because you can actually simulate sound waves and how they propagate through the environment using rays, the same way you do light. Obviously with slightly different calculations taken from the data there. But yeah, you can emulate the exact way that sound bounces around the environment. So like when you go into a cave, it sounds as it should, but not in like a a pre-processed, oh, this is the cave echo filter. But
Dude,
because the sound is actually propagating through the environment through rays, it sounds very realistic, no
that's
matter
just
what
crazy.
environment you're in.
But so what's crazy about that, right? It's that's I'm glad you brought that up because recently I've been thinking that AI could also, there's different ways you could use AI to
Mm.
build to improve games, right? And I just so we're clear, I hate AI. Like there's been a lot of pushing
The
of
way it's
AI
being used
lately.
is very dystopian.
Yeah, and I don't
AI
like
can
a
be
lot of
great,
it.
like with DLSS, but it can also be terrible, like with what we're
Yeah,
seeing.
with DLSS is great though. And so actually there is a game I was told about. Um a developer had reached out to me at some point. And it was like a small thing. Um they didn't ultimately we didn't come to any sort of agreement, but it's not the only game to have done this, right? But there's been a few games out there that have tried to create NPCs, non-playable characters
Mm.
that um these characters through artificial intelligence, through AI, kind of learn and react to you differently based off what you
Right.
ask or tell them. And so imagine the next Zelda game on the Switch 2, which has, it's powered with AI, right? With DLSS, right? That is AI. Like, and then there's the ray tracing as we're talking about the audio, and then they also go into this concept of like they create like almost like an AI physics based like system,
Mm.
not just for the audio, not just for the visuals and the mechanics, but also the characters. And so they continue. This basically it's them expanding even further on this concept of multiplicative gameplay, and they fine tune a series of systems that essentially continuously create a lot of unique scenarios that feel Zelda. So it is a Zelda
Mm.
game, but it's a Zelda game that has perhaps, I don't want to say endless gameplay, but significantly extended and expanded gameplay. Because imagine playing a game where you can enter unique scenarios with different characters. And they have their own backstories, reacting their different way. Perhaps some can suffer demise. Perhaps some could live happily ever after. Some could befriend you or not. And this could even apply to enemies as well, on top of everything else. Like, can you think about how mind-blowingly amazing that could be? Obviously,
Think
this would require a great deal of polish, years of
yeah.
work, execution. But if there's a team out there that could do it, it would be the Zelda team. Because it goes back to the point I was making to you earlier, Brandon. What I wanted to. It's why I brought up all this
Mm.
like multiplicative gameplay. Tears of the Kingdom took an extremely long time. And when they sort of went into further detail on this, it kind of really highlights why it took them so long because they took the
Right.
time to turn everything into a physics-based item or object. And so that was a huge undertaking.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the
It's why
AI
you hate
stuff
Tears of the
goes,
Kingdom.
yeah, that's exactly
Well,
why.
but I guess it's not. I'm not saying you hate the multiplicative gameplay. You just want more variety. And it kind of feels like we waited so long for a Zelda game, and it may not feel extremely unique for having waited 6+ years.
I think the problem is I like Zelda because of the very finely crafted worlds and scenarios that we had. And even Breath of the Wild, even though it was open, it still focused a lot on having more crafted scenarios. Whereas Tears of the Kingdom, a lot of its new stuff was here's a mechanic, go figure out how to have fun with it. And here's like tools to do that, which is cool if you like games like Minecraft or games like that. But that's not Zelda. Zelda's finely crafted, tuned experiences, and I didn't want Zelda to be like Minecraft or those other types of games. Like I don't care about that. Like those are fun, especially since it's not multiplayer. Like why would I want to play that kind of game and not be able to play it with a friend? Like if I could play with you, I think Tears of the Kingdom would be one of the greatest games ever made. If me and you could run around with maybe a couple other people too, and have fun in the world of Zelda together, I think it would be an absolutely amazing game. But the fact
Brandon,
that it's single player, it's like I don't want to do any of this stuff by myself.
idea. Remember how I had this dumb idea that they could have multiplayer DLC for Tears of the Kingdom?
Mm.
What if the reason the idea was dumb is because I wanted it as DLC, but they just made it into its own game? And so we're basically talking about like them revisiting Triforce Heroes or Four Swords, but open air 3D. Like it's basically you take the Tears, like even if it's the same art style, like they basically, you know, they still revisit like people want like Imprisoning War, Hyrule Warriors, like they give us another game that tells us more about the world of Tears of the Kingdom, but it's a spin-off. But it's not a Warriors game. It is Tears of the Kingdom Heroes or Tears of the Kingdom Four Swords or what have you. Right. And that could be pretty amazing. It could actually be like an incredible hit because of all the multiplicative gameplay and all the things you could do with your friends. Like, that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, because I think that's the problem is like I like that kind of gameplay. I just don't like it by myself. And of course, Zelda, like Tears of the Kingdom, does have some great crafted, you know, more dedicated experiences in it, and there is a story, and it's pretty good. I just don't. It's definitely not the focus of what their development was.
Yeah. There was something in my mind that came up that I wanted to bring up, but I don't. It just slipped my mind. I think it was in a super chat. What should you gotten to? Oh, yep. Here's one. Aristotle Enjoyer, thank you for the super chat. Aristotle Enjoyer says, "You are the man, Andres Restart. Appreciate you. I appreciate you appreciating me. Thank you. That's very nice of you. Thank you. I very much appreciate that." Man, I really wish I kind of got lost with what I was thinking.
Lost of the sauce.
Lost sauce. Tears of the Kingdom Four Swords would be crazy though.
Oh yeah, I would be so hyped.
It would be a huge release too. I think it would sell like 10 million plus.
Oh yeah,
it might even outsell Tears of the Kingdom itself. That's how crazy it would be.
It would be crazy
potentially. Like if it depending on how they kind of differentiate it, right? Like you know what is it about it? You know, if it's just like, hey, play Tears of the Kingdom, but now here's 3 other people. No, they would have to create like some sort of scenario, right? And there would have to be. It would be. I mean, can you imagine just playing? Imagine like it comes out this holiday, right? Let's say it's a November release, and it's literally you start the game. It takes place in the exact same world as Tears of the Kingdom, exact same world. Like, what do they do?
They just need to make it a survival crafting game. Those are so popular. Like, make Tears. It already kind of is a survival crafting game. Just make it into a full-fledged, great survival crafting game with all the mechanics of Tears of the Kingdom.
I know what you do. It is basically Tears of the Kingdom, but it's actually a new map that's smaller. It's a newer, smaller map that has depths. It has caves. It has a village or two. Has some sky island. It's just a smaller environment of Tears of the Kingdom, and it just there is this other land. That was once part of Hyrule, but through like seismic activity years ago, it broke off, and so like there's basically like a massive island, and that's where it takes place. And so, yeah, it'd be extremely interesting. $70. Maybe they do 60 because it would, maybe 60. But and the idea is it's like maybe there's like a few different dungeons in the game but they kind of focus on the multiplayer. And maybe what they do instead of having like a whole bunch of shrines and a whole bunch of big dungeons, maybe they have like 10 medium dungeons or like big shrines that have a boss fight at the end. It's like a multiplayer boss fight. But there's a series of puzzles. It's bigger than a shrine, but smaller than a dungeon. But there's 10 of them in this kind of map. And there's also just different interactions that happen in the overworld where you have to kind of team up to solve problems. And they just kind of also create scenarios to make it interesting where you can do things with each other or against each other.
Just make
A
it
playground.
crafting game. I'm telling you, man. Yeah, crafting, base building. You already have open world boss fights and stuff. This is Power World. This is Zelda World. Pop off.
It would be fun. It would be fun, and if you want to do story, they could be like, oh, so whatever happened to the Triforce? It's randomly on this small island. This is where it is. There could be lore behind it. It could be like, oh yeah, well there was due to the imprisoning war, the remaining Zonai, like they took the Triforce and broke off this piece of land elsewhere to keep it safe. Some bullshit like that they could do, and then we'll debate for months. I'm like, oh, this makes no sense. It actually breaks the timeline even more. Or I'll probably make the argument. Actually, this makes everything work.
This is the bandage. This is the glue stringing everything together in the timeline.
Yeah. I really wish I remember what I wanted to say from earlier. I don't remember. Oh, I don't remember, but maybe it was this. Johnny Hernandez in the chat said this. Mike Odyssey leak switch to doc on his YouTube channel is a patent. So I don't think it's a leak because it would be a patent. Also, April Fool's is yesterday. So I have to imagine that maybe there's a patent that seems to be suggestive of a doc. He does cover a lot of patents. So, there could be something to that. But also most patents don't seem to mean much. So, yeah. Or J.R.L. Toki asked me, make a Zelda where you have to discover the story on your own, Soulsborne style, no cutscenes, just exploration. You know what? I think you reminded me of what I wanted to talk about. And it also is something I probably shouldn't talk about because I intended on ending the stream now because I had told my friend I would give him a call soon. We'll wrap up. It'll be quick. I've been playing Elden Ring, right? And still playing it. I got past Leno. I'm in the Forbidden Lands, like that's the snowy, icy mountain area. It reminds me of Lord of the Rings. It's actually really cool. But something that happened beforehand when I was getting to the Atlas Plateau, it's like this big area that leads up to the capital where a lot of the trees are orange and yellow. It's a beautiful place. Super cool. But the game's open world, right? And you can go to different places in different ways, and I like that. But when you get to the Atlas Plateau, there is a part where you kind of have to collect these medallions that there are like a key to take you up this lift to take you to this higher piece of land. It's like the next big section of the game. Like, that's fine. But what I kind of disliked about that, and just for the record, I just want to make this really clear. I'm not trying to hate on Elden Ring. This is more of an observation on open world structure in games. Because the game's open, you can go to places in different ways, right?
Right.
There were other paths that I was like, oh, there's something over here. I got to the Atlas Plateau and I was like, okay, cool. But I don't want to progress too far until I check out these other like areas that are towards the end of this section. And so each sort of explorative point led me to the Atlas Plateau again, but just from a slightly different part of the plateau. 3 times. 3 different times. And they all basically would lead to the exact same place. And so my kind of gripe with this is that while, yeah, I like the openness, right? And I like the openness and being able to get to places and do things in different ways.
Right.
There was a scripted kind of moment in the game where there was even a cutscene that had a lift that takes me there where I needed a key. I needed to get a key or a combination of keys to take this lift that takes me to this place. But if there are alternative paths that, by the way, are just like 2 minutes away from each other via horse, right? In terms of getting to the same place just in a different way through another series of challenges that don't require a key, but maybe fighting a boss fight or just running through. What is the point of collecting the keys for that lift? There's a whole cutscene for it when I could have just gone to the left or to the right and it would have taken me to essentially the same place. It's just a little weird moment in the game, in my opinion. So yeah, that And to be clear, like where I'm at now, there's another lift, and it's kind of like some linear gameplay, right? Like I can't really do too much in this section that leads me to a bigger area. And so I'm not against the keys and the lifts. I'm not against kind of like sectioning things off until you sort of finish enough of the game, right? I actually don't mind that. I loved it in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, for example, how like the game's like it's not Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is technically not open world, right?
Right.
But there are big open sections, and you kind of have to progress at one point or another. And I'm okay with the game being open world, and I like the mixture of linear elements. I guess what I mean is like, don't have a scripted like portion of the game that's totally unnecessary, like totally. Like you can have something, right, and there could be a story sequence there that maybe just adds a little bit more flavor. But if it's literally like there's a cave to the left, there's a castle to the right, and there's just like a slope in the middle, and they all lead to the same province. It just seems dumb. I think maybe there could have been something rethought about that section just slightly. Maybe just like not have a lift there. Just don't have it be a key. It's just there. Just gotta go through, and then I wouldn't have questioned it. I guess ultimately why I bring this up is just like looking at like open world games, because Tears of the Kingdom, is also open world, and there's these debates about Tears of the Kingdom because a lot of fans want there to be more of a story, but in order to tell a better story, sometimes you want more scripted linear moments, and so that gets challenging because Elden Ring does have a lot of more linearity than say Tears of the Kingdom, and it has some kind of scripted moments which are pretty cool, and I think they do a good job overall. But there are moments where I'm like, that's kind of weird, right? So sometimes mixing in linear moments with open world doesn't just work easily. Like it is tough to find the right balance. So you have to be very careful about how the world is crafted and why you go where you go. It's not easy. It's extremely difficult.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just my tangent on that.
I think it's a fair tangent.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Maybe this may lead into me making a video just talking about like open world games in general and the challenges that come with it. Because I don't think we've seen the best open world game yet.
No.
I don't think the Zelda team has mastered it. And while I think they've done some amazing, I don't think any game has really mastered open world. I think
most games are just more empty space in between normal things that you would do. Well, most games don't even use the open world that well.
Right, and it's part of it's why a lot of people would prefer some linear games, because linear games are more finely crafted. They have those cool like plot beats or sequences, because they're all scripted. It's all put together. Open world, it's all kind of spread out, and it doesn't feel as well crafted. I think there is a way to marry both, and I just don't think, from what I've experienced, I don't think we've seen that proper marriage yet. The ultimate open world game has yet to have been created. Which,
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I guess you could also make the argument that there's no such thing as perfection, and it's always just kind of finding ways to get better and better, right? But that's the exciting part. Like, there's always something that can be even better. That can go even more beyond.
Go even further beyond, yes.
And in turn, this has to be excited for the future of Zelda. What will they do next? How will they better sell open air Zelda? How will they improve and build on it while maintaining the essence of Zelda? And I think this is kind of the crux of the issue with a lot of the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom debate, because some people want more variety, want more density, want more of the scripted moments, want a better told story. Other people really appreciate the open nature of it, but can you find a way to make both feel more satisfying? I think so, but it ain't easy. That's why it hasn't really been done. All right. Last couple questions. So I got a super chat here from George FT. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. George says or asks, who do you think would be interested in a new Star Fox outside of Miyamoto? Anyone with some taste.
Facts.
With good taste. So when you say outside of Miyamoto, that's not even necessarily outside of Nintendo. It could still be a Nintendo studio that could work on it. But I would argue that most Star Foxes are outsourced. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe the next Star Fox shouldn't be outsourced. Maybe an internal Nintendo team should be responsible for making the next Star Fox. But I don't.
Platinum Games have it.
Who?
Platinum Games.
They don't like what they did with Star Fox Zero, but I think they just didn't have a lot of budget behind that.
Yeah, they didn't have like any budget.
Yeah. Who's the studio behind Ace Combat? I think I would prefer to see Ace Combat do a Star Fox game, like whoever does that. It's the Bandai Namco developer. I kind of want to see that. Like some team that behind a serious flying game that has high critical acclaim. But then I would just want it to be flying focused.
I don't know.
Depends
on how much budget they have.
Depends, yeah. Or who do they have? There's also like they've done some things with Star Wars that kind of get me. Which, by the way, Star Fox is very clearly inspired by Star Wars. Like that's kind of the play, right? Star Fox, right? So it kind of gets me thinking, like, could a certain developer that's made a quality, Star Wars game, could they make a quality Star Fox game? I think there's some potential there. I guess the team that I'm referring to here is Project Aces, because that's what Captain Doge is saying. Yeah, maybe. I feel like they would do a really good job. That'd be pretty awesome. But also on the flip side, you look at what Ubisoft did with Starlink, and I think there's a
Ubisoft's
really
worked on Star Wars as well. They're working on Star Wars right now. They're working on the Outlaws, Star Wars Outlaws.
Okay. I'm not super familiar with it, so I'm kind of like looking it up.
There's not a ton. There's only one trailer for the game. It's not a ton.
Is it all cutscenes, so you don't even know what it's about?
No, it's pretty much all gameplay, actually.
Interesting. Oh, this looks really cool. This looks pretty hype, actually.
No, yeah, I'm super hyped for it.
Yeah. Wow. Man, this looks really cool. Is it? Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, it seems like an evolution of the Star. Like from the few seconds I watched, right? I just kind of skipped through. I saw like some flying segments, some world exploration segments. Like if it's like an open space exploration game, that's kind of what Starlink was, but there wasn't a lot of density to the world. So there wasn't like a lot of side quests and walking around. Like imagine if they create a Star Fox game where I don't need it to be big. I'm not asking for like, oh, I need like 50 planets to explore in a solar system.
Right.
No, maybe like 6 or 7. The planets are small relatively, but each planet has like areas where you can walk around, talk to people. You can explore, and like you can explore kind of fully explore Corneria. And there's an ongoing sort of battle going on, because that's what the Star Fox games are. Basically, a more finely tuned Star Fox themed, with better kind of like side quests.
I think a game that Star Fox could actually take some inspiration from, oddly enough, is Ratchet and Clank. If you've ever played Ratchet and Clank,
I'm gonna play it soon. The new one.
There's a lot of similarities you could draw. I mean, they're both space games, both like animals, but also I think it would be cool because in Ratchet and Clank you can just go to different planets and explore them, and there's a lot of platforming and exploration. But there's also some of them. There's flying segments as well, where you're flying in your ship in space. I think if they made something more similar to Ratchet and Clank, that'd be cool. In some aspects,
does sound pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's also like a little bit of the aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. Yeah, I'd be down for that. That'd be pretty awesome. But in the interest of time, I think we're gonna wrap things up here. I'm gonna end the poll. You're gonna be shocked with the results, Brandon.
I might be, unless it's the same as. I'm not too shocked. Okay.
Would you be happy with Wind Waker HD for $60? Scrapped Wii U features at 60 FPS for Switch. Reminder: scrapped Wii U features means less features.
Right.
57% said yes.
I mean, I am surprised. Just considering, I thought it was gonna go how it was initially going, where it was like, like 15 to 25% of people
Yeah.
said yes, and everybody else said no.
Yeah.
I voted no personally. I would not. And keep in mind, Wind Waker is one of my favorite games ever made, and I would not pay $60 for Wind Waker HD on Switch at 60 FPS. I would wait and buy it secondhand, or I'd wait for like a 4K patch on Switch 2 or something.
Yeah.
It's too much money. It's a lot of money.
I think what this shows is that a lot of people really want Wind Waker HD.
I guess so.
Yeah, I mean,
I really want it too.
Game.
Like, if I could play it right now, I would.
I can play it on my Wii U, but I'd rather have it on my Switch, where it's a lot more comfortable. Yeah. It'd be cool. Here's an idea. Something basic, like make the game 60 FPS, right? Add hero mode's already. Keep hero mode, right? But maybe add like a boss rush mode. That would be neat. Maybe allow you to start New Game Plus from the beginning.
Right.
That'd be cool. And maybe what if they did like go back to Miiverse and they found a way to make it work, like the tingle bottles. Maybe it's no longer Miiverse based, but they just kind of put in a communication system specifically for Wind Waker HD.
I wonder if they could make it based.
It's very Dark Souls like, actually, when you think about it. Like, you have the messages in. But that's just instead it's a tingle bottle game. So is it really that much?
Yeah, they could just incorporate it into like something in game. But I was thinking if they wanted to keep like a social media aspect, I'm wondering if they could somehow program it to like if you put a specific hashtag, like hashtag Wind Waker HD Switch or something, then it would like that message would also appear in tingle bottles in the games if you were connected online or something.
Yeah, I guess the weird part about that is it kind of takes away from your immersion, though. What's cool about the Soulsborne games is that you have a limited amount of things you can say, right? So there's like its own culture and kind of feel to it. If you can just kind of write and put hashtags, if you're seeing like hashtags inside tingle bottles of Twitter, it would take away from the immersion. But if you kind of have like a limited messaging system,
is that how it worked in Wind Waker HD? I never used the tingle balls in Wind Waker.
Well, I don't remember there being hashtags, but there could be drawings.
Well, right, but there was like drawings, and you could say whatever.
You could still do drawings, though. There's a touchscreen, right? Drawings could still be a thing.
Yeah, I would probably think it would be better just in the game.
Yeah,
I might actually use it then. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. It would be fun. My thing about it is that I'm like, well, it would be really cool, but also since I've already played the game many times, I don't need it. Like, I would just, you know what I mean? Like when I'm playing, like, for example, I'm playing Elden Ring right now. I like looking at the message because like there's a lot of mystery to the world, and seeing the messages can kind of help me or not help me, right? Like in Wind Waker, because I know the game so well. For me personally, the tingle balls would just be like, okay, that's neat, but it's not something I check too often. It's kind of something I kind of wish they would do for future Zelda games. So, but maybe that revisiting and repurposing the tingle bottle for Wind Waker HD now can kind of put that into position to happen later down the road.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool though in a new Zelda game.
Yeah. Imagine in Tears of the Kingdom would have been neat, especially like in Tears of the Kingdom. Imagine if there was a messaging system like this, but they also had like auto build codes. Like you could share imagine imagine there was like a big chasm, right, or a big island, and there's something else off into the distance, right, and which people would notice, right, and so they put a message there. And you see the message, and the message is like, oh, try this, right? And it shows like a schematic of an auto build. And so you can then try. They literally, like, you know what I mean? Like you can use their auto build from the message. Like that would be really cool. Yeah, and then you have people trying out different devices and
give you more reason to actually make cool builds because you could share them.
Or people would make you can share them and people can or you can just use the cool builds that people make for you.
Yeah.
So and that would be, I think it would have added another dynamic to the game that would have made it a better experience overall for more people. Anyways, last question here. I saw the Metroid Fighter 90 had added me. So I'll read this out here. Final Fantasy Rebirth does a pretty good job forming a balance between being open world and linear. The game is split into sequential areas, but each area is really big and filled with stuff to do. Yeah, I actually been thinking about very similar to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which I've heard people compare Rebirth to. I am planning on playing that actually. My only kind of issue is that it means I have to finish 7 Remake, and I haven't wanted to go back to that game in a while. But I think once I finish Elden Ring, I gotta figure out what I'm doing next. There's a few games on my plate, but it is on my to-do list because I've heard really good things. So
play Final Fantasy 15 or 16. I mean 16.
I wanted to play 15 as well.
15 is pretty good, but it's okay.
Yeah.
16 is a game I'm very excited to play as soon as I fix my PlayStation.
Yeah, they all look fun. But anyways, with that, I will now call it a night. Thank you, everyone, for coming to watch tonight. Thank you for liking the stream. That's super helpful. It's super appreciated. Make sure to send Brandon some love on Twitter. What about is it? It's what about non-narm? It's
on Twitter.
It's what I think it's at what about non-narm, but then just Brandon. Maybe you should just become just Brandon.
It's at the at is it's what about non-narm is the display name. The at's not that.
Yeah, it's Brandon's in your name though. It's like what about non-narm at Brandon Alex.
117.
Am I allowed to put links? I am allowed to put links. Look at that. Look at me.
Am I allowed to put links?
I'm allowed to put links on my own channel. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just realized I have nothing inside the description box today. I put yup. That was my description box. I was clearly on my A game. I don't know, man. Sometimes it's wild to me, though, right? Like, I see, like, some people who go completely viral, right? And they don't use hashtags. They don't do any sort of SEO. They just put nothing in their description boxes or anything like that, and they just do extremely well. It's just... Sometimes I wonder how much any of that matters. Yeah. But anyways, everyone, thank you so much for watching. We wish you a good night. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye, guys.